What is mindfulness? Well, okay. If we think about it, no. Okay. What is mindfulness? Well, mindfulness describes a state of consciousness that is different from our normal way of being in the world. See, ordinarily, we're so caught up in our thoughts and our feelings and events and all these things that are happening in the world that we don't appreciate the looking from space, the place where we observe what's happening in the world. Right. And what I mean by this is very difficult to understand, but very easy to know directly. So instead of trying to comprehend what it means in a way that can be analyzed and scrutinized and thought about, let's instead take this as an opportunity to experience mindfulness directly. And now, in order to do that, we simply have to have a moment where we're not thinking and we're simply experiencing what is happening right here and right now. So let's do this together. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, just notice the mind quieting for a moment. Notice the gaps between the thoughts, where you are still here, still aware, still conscious, but not thinking. Now, the mind is going to try and make sense of this, but just return your attention to your breathing and feel what it's like to just be here right now, to be experiencing life from this place of observation. And what you'll find if you look deeply within is that this is actually such a natural place to be. Such a great feeling comes with it. A feeling of contentment, of inner peace, of aliveness. And so we just sit with that for a moment. Now the world continues to go. You might even be moving, doing things, busy with life. And yet, you are always witnessing this experience of life from this place within. I say this place, but it's not really a place, and it's not really within. It is actually a no place that is everywhere. But without getting too mystical about it, let's just, again, return to the breath, return to this feeling of aliveness, of vitality, an extraordinary shift in consciousness away from thinking and feeling to just being. You know, when we think about ourselves, human being is such a great descriptor because we are both human and we are being. We are human in the sense that we do things, we're a person, we have a life and a life situation. We have a personality, we have friends, we have family, we have jobs, we have all these things. And so we do and live in the world and create and be a part of the evolution of everything. But at the same time, this deeper layer within us is the being, the part that is utterly still at all times, just looking, just observing, detached from everything else, but not detached in a negative way. It is simultaneously intrinsically connected but disconnected at the same time. You see, when we talk about mindfulness, we run into these sorts of paradoxes because how do you talk about something that is not a concept using concepts? You can't really. You can only point to it so that you can experience it directly. For the state of mindfulness is one way to describe it. Zen is another. Consciousness is another. Presence is another. There are so many ways that we can point to this place, to this state of being, to this way of operating in the world. And when you realize this, you realize that so much of your consciousness has been caught up in the thinking mind, where for most of the time, for most days, we're all consumed by our thoughts, meaning that we do not have space between ourselves as the conscious being and the thoughts themselves. We embed ourselves in these thoughts and they feel like who we are, which is to say, we identify with them. And in doing so, we cause so much suffering for ourselves and other people because everything is so serious. And every thought that we identify with risks competition, risks being, someone else saying a different opinion that then feels like they're threatening ourselves because we feel like we are the thoughts and so we must defend our positions. Sometimes even with our lives, people defend their thoughts. Give your life for an idea. That's been a common theme throughout human history. And yet, when we take a step back and realize that we are not our thoughts, nor our emotions, nor our bodily sensations, that we are in fact the consciousness that witnesses all of these things, we create a space to realize what is real, what is ultimately real. And that is simply consciousness. And so, to reflect on this is to point in the direction that I was speaking of, towards a mindful state of being, to awaken from the dream of thought into alert stillness, inner silence, and life in this moment. Now, you can never achieve mindfulness. You can only be mindful. For it is not something that can be gained or lost. It is simply something that we realize that is there in a moment, or we are lost in thought and forget about it because we are too distracted. And yet, with enough practice, we can actually think mindfully, where thoughts can go through our heads and we recognize them just as thoughts, allowing them to be there and then allowing them to pass. knowing that the thought is just a thought and it is not who we are, and we are not all consumed by it. Same with emotions. They come, we experience the feeling of them, but they are not who we are. And there's an important distinction we can make in the language we use to speak about emotions. We would typically say something like, I am angry. But in that way of talking about it, we are actually identifying with the anger, saying, I am angry, instead of saying, I feel angry, or there is anger in me. And in doing so, we create that separation, that divide where there is I and there is anger, but it is not one. And that's such an important distinction for us to make in our everyday lives, because we need to learn how to disconnect in this way so that we are not all consumed by thoughts or emotions, so that we remain in the seat of observation at all times. I say at all times, but rarely I mean this moment. Because actually, there is only this moment. Time is a human perception where things happen only in this moment. The past is a collection of memories, perhaps written down, perhaps on video, but ultimately only ever experienced in the present. So we remember things now, or we watch something from the past now, but we don't live experientially in the past. We experientially live in the present only. Similarly, the future is merely a projection. It is a way of thinking about what possibly might be coming in the future. And yet we never experience the future. We only experience the present. And so we must learn to prioritize the present moment, for it is the only true reality that there is. And so how do we do that? Well, just become aware of what is right now and focus on that. This is not to say that we mustn't plan and be pragmatic and do things for the future or learn from the past. That's true too. And it's very useful and very important. But on a deeper level, there is only this moment. And so it is worth prioritizing and making sure we stay present this moment, just right here, right now. And there are so many ways that we can begin to do that. A simple deep breath shifts our attention inwards, and we can stop and remain in that seat of observation, that place of mindfulness, and just be there, fully awake, fully alert, fully alive. We also needn't be waiting. Don't be waiting for the next thing that I say. For waiting is a state of anticipation of the future instead of living in the present. And so, if there is gaps between the words that I speak, just be present with that. Appreciate the silence and just notice what's going on. Perhaps you can feel your inner body at that moment and just see what it's like to be you, to be here right now, just experiencing life. And you'll notice a great sense of inner peace comes with that. An inner peace and an inner knowing. For it is from this place of peace and knowing that true wisdom arises, and knowledge that right action happens when it's supposed to. And so we return to this place each moment, being here and breathing. I welcome you to the now, and I invite you to carry this with you throughout your day to see if you can remain mindful every moment, just this moment, and see what happens in your life and how you begin to experience life in a new way that feels more fulfilling, it feels more vital, and it feels more true. So as we come to the end of the talk today, let's just take a moment to say thank you to the universe for showing us what we need to see, for telling us what we need to hear, and for inviting us to wake up. Thank you.